I mean, I think you touched on something that is very, very important about Furnished Finder and like one of the keys to our success. And it's been that very fast response to market changes, right? Our company has evolved so quickly, and it's not every company can actually say, "Hey, I was able to respond to this right now and like launch a product, and we were able to just quickly develop things that we knew our base needed."
Welcome to the Landlord Diaries, where we talk about midterm rentals and the opportunities behind them. We'll share landlord stories, talk about maximizing investment potential, and discuss how to live the very best landlord life. This podcast is proudly brought to you by Furnished Finder, the leader and largest online marketplace for midterm rentals. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy our content.
All right, everybody, we have a very special treat today. Cami Narino, Chief Operating Officer at Furnished Finder for almost a decade now. She was one of our first hires to be part of the Furnished Finder team and is a huge part of our growth internally and externally. So I'm going to let her introduce herself today because she has such a fantastic story.
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me here today. Like Kelly said, I've been here for a pretty long time. I was employee number two back in 2015, 2016. I can't even remember at this point anymore. But I had the pleasure to meet our founders back when I was still living in Bogota, Colombia, originally born and raised in Colombia. And they shared the story of, this project that they were looking at building. And it was just a really cool opportunity for me to jump on board and help build what Furnish Finder is today. So yeah, excited for us to chat today.
Yeah, Cami is like an original OG. She has been here for so long, and she's not only watched Furnish Finder kind of grow up from its infancy and more of just kind of like the idea stage where it was like, is this going to work? Is it not? All the way to where we are now with over 300,000 listings. And she's also seen that change within the midterm rental space. So we're going to kind of dig into that with Cami, all the changes she has seen, and also some tips from her as someone who has been here for so long on best practices for your Furnished Finder listing, for your midterm rental, all of those things. So let's just start and talk about the changes that you've seen in the past 10 years. Give us a little bit of insight as to, what did midterm rentals and Furnished Finder look like when you started compared to what they look like now?
I mean, the biggest thing is that people did not know about midterm rentals. It's not like they didn't exist because the concept of, how traveling nurses traveled back in the day is pretty similar to how it works today. But there was not a lot of knowledge around it. And there was definitely not a place where these type of professionals could go and find homes that were set up for what they needed, for 3 months at a time or anywhere over a month at a time. So I think that the biggest change is the fact that there's a lot more like press around it. It's actually becoming a huge part of this rental industry. Of course, Furnish Finder has been a leader in the space for the longest time since we were the first ones to actually go and start building a platform where this type of professionals that need midterm rentals can come and find a specialized solution for what they're looking for.
Tell us some fun facts about like when Furnish Finder was a baby, right? Like in my head, because I've been here for a little while. I'm kind of like an in-betweener, right? But like tell us what it was like to work when you guys, the original crew, which is just a handful of people, you guys. It's like the
Yeah.
founder and Cami and like one or two other people. What was it like? Like, were you guys really confident about this midterm space? Were you a little bit like nervous about it? Were you like, I know this is going to be a huge thing, but nobody has kind of hit the nail on the head yet? Like, what was kind of the sentiment?
The sentiment in general, we were all so confident that this was going to become a thing, you know? So that conviction, I think, is what played a huge part into getting Furnish Finder into where it's at today. I remember some of the conversations, we had, introducing this to landlords, and landlords were like, "Yeah, what? They're actually professionals that are going to stay here for 3 months. Is that a thing?" We're like, yeah, it happens and it's happening, and you need to become a part of this.
So, how have you seen supply and demand change for midterm rentals and skyrocket from its origin to now?
Yeah, I mean, there's the thing about the supply piece is that it's also pretty driven by demand, right? Travel nurse and the medical professional workforce, it's been it's crazy, right? Like the amount of professionals that are traveling this space is really large, and especially during COVID. That I think you guys have talked about this during the podcast. Furnish Finder saw a huge peak of growth during COVID because of our presence within the medical professional space. um it's insane to actually know go and now that we're expanding across all kinds of demographics to see how much demand there is for this type of rentals. You don't only have the medical professional, which is how Furnish Finder was born, back in 2014, but now you have the digital nomad concept that is also something that it's actually been there for a long time, but COVID also help bring that to light, and help that become even more popular. Like, hey, you can actually work from home and you can go and relocate and spend maybe 3 months in Florida and then go back to New York and then move to California. The relocation portion is also very, very interesting when it comes to the demand piece. You have a lot of families that are relocating, and the old format is, hey, you have to go through the specific agency that is going to help you. But you also have a lot of families that are just very DIYers, like a lot of us. I myself, just relocated, picked up my things, and moved to a Furnish Finder just so that we could get settled in Texas. So there has been a lot of growth across demand, and that is also helping drive all of that supply. Not only that, but then you also have all of those changes around like short-term rental regulations that are helping bring additional supply over to the midterm rental space. So it's going to keep on evolving.
Yeah, I think that's huge because really, like, coming from the days where Furnish Finder was an idea and a concept, and then when it was like a baby business, and then it's grown through all of the stages. The midterm rental market has grown as well with all of these different use cases, like you're talking about, with relocations, with, of course, traveling nurses, but other corporate travelers and people who are remodeling but don't want to give up their interest rate. It's evolved so much, and we've evolved as well. So I think
Yeah.
it's been really cool to see like the growth in tandem. I'd love to hear some of your favorite things that we've as Furnish Finder have either like developed or really focused in on in the past 10 years, because we do have Furnish Finder, right? And but we also have our leasing documents. We have our tenant screening, we have Worry-Free Waiver. We have all of these tools in the toolkit really meant like as the midterm rental market evolved, like we've always been very aware of that and aware of the needs of landlords. And it's like as soon as we see something they need, we're like, okay, we got it. We're going to give you this. We're going to give you this. But there's been so many things to do. I'm curious to hear kind of what your favorite things are and how you've seen that impact our users.
I mean, I think you touched on something that is very, very important about Furnish Finder and like one of the keys to our success. And it's been that very fast response to market changes, right? Our company has evolved so quickly, and it's not every company can actually say, hey, I was able to respond to this right now and like launch a product, and we were able to just quickly develop things that we knew our base needed. So yeah, I mean, our whole set of products, I think, is a response to that. Aside from a really cool marketplace that charges no booking fees, that allows direct communication between parties, which is already very different from what's out there. And I know that's one of the biggest and most attractive pieces of how Furnish Finder adds value and how we're different. But I personally really enjoyed, and I recently used the screening product. Um, it's fascinating how easy it is for you to go ahead and buy it and go ahead and just send that screening to your tenant. I went through the process for the very first time myself as a tenant. as I was, helping my little sister who was doing her PhD program in California, getting into a furnish finder. So I received the screening, and the process was just so smooth. The delivery to both the landlord and myself, everything was just so easy. So huge fan of that specific product. And I know most recently we launched our deposit free protection, product, which I think is also fantastic. It's such a different product to what's out there in the market, and it gives that other piece that we knew our landlords needed. They kept on asking, hey, how do I even manage security deposits? Travelers themselves as well, like, how does this even work? What am I going to do about this money? What if I don't get it back? So having that product be live right now, and for us to be able to support our landlords and our travelers and making their rental process way smoother than it is today, it's something really, really cool to see.
Yeah, it's I think we just highlighted in a couple here, but we have KeyCheck that we've developed over the years. And KeyCheck was like this baby that was formed because we were like, okay, we have all these tenants, we have all these landlords, and now they've made a match, but we're not a direct booking site. So it was almost like we were like leaving these landlords in the middle of the ocean without a boat. Like, where do you go now? So then KeyCheck was born, and it was like, okay, you can do those screenings that you were saying. You can do the leases. You can do all of these things. And now we're even in like the next phase is like we're integrating it even more into Furnished Finder. So you don't even have to leave the Furnished Finder dashboard. But I just the reactivity and the fact that like we're able to constantly add those products has been so awesome since we are like the market and these needs are changing and we are getting to know everybody's needs so much.
Exactly. I mean, the KeyCheck as a brand was born out of that. We had hundreds of landlords that would reach out to our support teams asking, well, I have this traveler and I'm so excited to turn this traveler into a tenant. How do I even do that? It's my
Yeah.
first time renting. How do I do this? So the suite of products that we offer under KeyCheck that are, as you mentioned, we're making them available under the Furnish Finder dashboard. They were born out of that necessity for us to be able to help our landlords build a rental process that is smooth and just simply integrated with their Furnish Finder experience.
I think that's a great point to emphasize at this point. As our COO, Chief Operating Officer, why is it so important that every landlord adds all of their properties they want to operate as midterm rentals so that they don't miss out on these individual tools that we've built for each property?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There are a couple of things that when it comes to like why adding inventory matters. I mean, the first thing is you got to have map presence, right? We have thousands of travelers interacting with our map on a daily basis, and there is competition. So as a landlord myself, I want my properties and my entire inventory to show up on the Furnish Finder map. So as a traveler is searching through our inventory, they can find your properties, right? It's like, you can just have one, but that decreases the chances of a traveler finding that one property for every single search. If you add the majority of your inventory or all of your inventory to Furnish Finder, we have, you have higher chances of actually connecting with a lot of travelers. So that's very, very important. Now, the other piece to that is, our site is evolving, and there are a lot of communications that we're sending you to remind you that, hey, Furnish Finder is evolving. You're evolving our technology. And this also involves the future update of how our map works in the search results section. We are looking at bringing more data points of what's important for a traveler when they're looking and they're performing a search, right? Is calendar important? Yes, it is. Of course, I want to know if that property is available, but is this landlord also set up to actually have a full rental process built? Is this landlord actually using the deposit alternative, or am I going to have to pay a security deposit, for example? How long has this landlord been on the platform? Has this landlord been receiving reviews and whatnot? So there are going to be a lot of different things that we're going to consider as we continue to rebuild that piece of our technology to make sure that we continue to highlight not only the right behaviors, but also the right things that are going to be important for travelers, who ultimately are going to be looking at that map.
Yeah. You guys, our customer service team gets so like we listen to these calls and we are really like hearing what you're asking for. And we're also hearing and listening to what the travelers are asking for. So like when we're talking about these next evolvements with our search page and with our platform, it's to make it work better for everybody. So that's where, like Cami said, it's really, really important to be tuned in to the updates we're sending, the communications, log into your dashboard. Like we want you to be active landlords. Yes, we want to make this absolutely as easy and efficient as it can be, like always, but we do want you to have some participation in your success, right? So make sure that you are, listening with one ear open to make sure that you are going to get the best out of your Furnished Finder experience. And talking about getting the best out of your Furnished Finder experience, we're 10 years old. Cami has been here. Like she's essentially, she's a Furnished Finder 10-year-old. I think we should have a birthday party for you too, Cami.
I would
Um,
love that.
yeah, let's talk about some best practices that you recognized. Guys, we sent out an email a while ago from Cami with some of her like top tips for how to like get the best success out of Furnished Finder. And I think we should just go into those a little bit more too, because they were so great,
Yeah,
especially with Cami's background. So I think we can easily piggyback on your first one, which was the Furnished Finder tenant screening. This one is clutch. I know some people are a little hesitant, like, do I need to screen the tenant, especially if they're a medical professional? And Cami, like you mentioned, you are a midterm rental landlord yourself as well. So, what is your policy? Do you screen every single tenant, even if they're, let's say, a travel nurse?
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, doing your due diligence, no matter who it is always going to be, it's imperative for you to run your business. At the end of the day, landlording is a business, right? And you have to build processes that are going to help you maximize the performance of your business. And this is one of those, right? This is protecting your asset and protecting that investment. And you do that by screening whoever's going to be renting your home, no matter the background.
Yeah, I think that's hugely important. And you guys, when you're talking about medical professionals, yes, their background screened very thoroughly, but the hospitals, the staffing agencies, they're not looking to see if they've ever had an eviction or to see
Exactly.
what their credit score
Their
is.
credit
That's not,
score.
yeah, that is not
Mhm.
relevant to them, right? So you're looking for different things. I always love the way Kelly talks about it. She's like, that's how I know this tenant is committed, right? And Kelly, I'd love for you to speak on that too, but it's like I always think about that in the back of my head too. I'm like, I want to know that they're really serious about this and that they're committed.
Mm-hmm. I share exactly what Cami experienced. The tenant screening is so refreshing how simple and
So
quick it
simple.
is. It's like all you need is their first name, their last name, and their email address. Then you submit the tenant screening through KeyCheck. It immediately sends an email over to that tenant that they can fill out within 5 minutes if they're not in the middle of a shift and are ready to move forward with the screening. So you can have the screening complete like within minutes. It's fantastic. And then, that we've got the lease creation through KeyCheck, which is fully customizable. It's state specific. You just answer a series of questions. So we really have thought through all the tools to make sure that you can have a successful midterm rental experience if you use the tools correctly. And one thing I'd really like to hear from you, Cami, leading our customer service and sales team with hundreds of employees in Colombia that you've built over all these years, almost a decade now. Furnished Finder turns 10. We're so excited for all the growth, both uh, in Colombia, in Austin, Texas. We've got remote workers. So when it comes to a top notch listing, I'd love to hear, especially with the service in mind, that we have the opportunity. When anyone who's ever added a listing to the site knows that you're going to see the option of, do you want to set up your own listing, or would you like to use our listing setup team? If they chose to use the listing setup team, how is that team going to make sure they have a top-notch listing every time that you can communicate it from an operational standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, of course. The biggest thing when it comes to a listing being built is that you got to know your demographic, right? You got to know who you're talking to. Um, our team has been doing this for a very, very long time. We have specific account specialists that work with hundreds of landlords, and they've helped hundreds of landlords build their listings so they understand what it is that makes the difference. From a killer property description that is going to be super specific, that is going to highlight what makes that property pop, that what makes it special, what's going to make it attractive for your future tenants, to photo editing, even support building your fees and like what that fee structure needs to be like. The team handles it all. This is especially something that we see a lot of our newbies, that are coming in and they're like, hey, I just bought this property, it's my first time renting, I have no clue what I'm doing. Our listing setup team can come in and actually help you and walk you through first how Furnished Finder works, how you're going to work with your tenant leads, and then build that whole listing to make sure that it's as attractive as it can be for your future tenants, which is extremely, extremely important.
All right, let's talk about those top-notch listings because that was another one of your best practices that I love. Tell me some of your best tips for like having an amazing top-notch listing. And I think like you said, like we have so many agents who have been doing this forever and we've kind of seen the evolution of listings and the market. What do you think are some of the easy wins for people who are maybe listing or editing their listing?
Yeah. So the first thing, and I just touched on that, is going to be your property description, right? I've spent countless hours, reading through descriptions, and what I've seen is that there's so much opportunity in you actually knowing, hey, this is the type of tenant that I'm trying to bring to my listing, right? Hey, if I know my property is close to a hospital and I know that that's the type of tenant that I want to host, well, we need to think about what is important for that type of tenant and actually highlighting the key features of your property that are going to be attractive and appealing for who your demographic is. Same if you're working with digital nomads, what's important for a digital nomad? If you ask me, fast internet. I need to have a dedicated workspace, fast internet. It needs to be quiet so I can actually do my work. So think about who you're trying to appeal, and that's something that is a key piece of when you're building your listing, something to think about. Second thing, it's going to be your photos, and that's like it's incredible the difference and performance of a listing that has the photos that I just took with my iPhone really, really quick that might be a little blurry, a little dark, versus professional photography. It's a huge investment in your business, and this is going to last, and it's definitely going to pay off. Now, when it comes to how you set up your fee structure, that's also going to be very, very important, right? Because this is a marketplace, which means there's competition, and you need to be very aware what is a competitive price for your property type, right? If it's based on location, it's based on size, it's based on the level of furnishings, different amenities that you offer. But you got to be very sensitive to what is happening around you and what your competition is offering, and making sure that you're super on top of your pricing. Same goes as with fees, and that's part of the reason why I keep on highlighting the usage of that product, the deposit free alternative product that we've built, because the more fees you add, and it starts getting into a very lengthy list, and that makes your property less appealing for the tenant that is actually looking at it, right? As a tenant myself, I'm looking at a property that has competitive price, incredible quality on what the property offers, and also not a list of 15,000 fees that I'm going to have to pay that are going to make that actually like my monthly rate super, super high. So just keep in mind that's super important. And then, of course, when it comes to your calendar, you got to keep that updated, because it's going to be really, really hard for any sort of tenant to know if your property is actually available for the dates that they're looking for, if your calendar has not been updated in a while. So when it comes to listing quality, those will be the ones that I would highlight, but there's just like so much more, that you can do, and you have full control over how your property is shared, right? And what information your tenants are going to be able to see and absorb of your listing.
You have full control. And I think you saved the best for last with that calendar. And that is like such a huge thing because since we are not a direct booking site, your calendar is not going to automatically update right? But if your property is vacant, we need to know that and you need to tell us frequently because we don't want the system to think, oh, you must have forgotten to update your calendar. We assume it's booked, right? So keep feeding the platform accurate information, particularly with your calendar if you are waiting for a tenant or it's vacant, something like that, right? My biggest thing, and I love, I think you hinted on this with everything you said, is if it if you're not getting the types of tenants that you are hoping to get, or you're not getting a tenant as fast as you'd like, keep tinkering with things, right? Lower your fees a little bit, do a little bit of market research, see what other properties are going for price wise, like get some professional photos taken. This is like something where, you have that control and it's all up to you to take it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Even the listing name, when you go through the map, and I invite our landlords to just go search your map, not even for your own city, but just go somewhere else, and search and take a look at the descriptors of the listing, like that name that was given. That is amazing real estate for you to highlight whatever it is that is important, and think
Yes.
about what is important for your future tenant. If it's, hey, this is centrally located or close to a park or close to hospitals, but there's so many spaces within your listing that, where you can tinker with it, like Katie said, and you can just figure out what's going to be the best way to talk about your home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think this is a perfect segue to what we hear over and over again on the Landlord Diaries is a favorite feature of landlords, and that's our tenant leads. And one of the cool
Oh yeah.
things that ties in here for tenant leads is when you're thinking of, well, who is my client going to be? You may be brand new and not know who, if you're going to be serving travel nurses or academics or, working professionals with, new projects going up in the area. Your listing evolves over time. And one of the best ways to know your tenant type is through tenant leads. So from an operational standpoint, Cami, something we've never talked about on the show, which I'd be so curious to hear from you, is how did tenant leads evolve in the first place? And that demand that y'all heard, okay, this is a unique opportunity that no other company is doing. And it can be a huge asset to our landlords and travelers. How did y'all come up with that?
That's a very good question. There was a lot of trial and error in us building the tenant lead section. First, we had to learn from our landlords themselves, like what is it that's important to you, and like how fast do we need to deliver this to you to make sure that you're interacting with it and it's actually delivering value. And then second, we started learning, hey, not every tenant lead is going to be a match for every landlord. So as we started seeing that and learning also from our travelers, hey, this property is definitely not what I was looking for. Is there a way that, you can just not deliver maybe this lead to a specific property that it's not exactly what I need. We started ideating, well, maybe it sounds like we're building a matching system somewhat, right? Where a traveler can comment and submit a housing request, for example. And based on that, our system is trying to do matching in the back. And then once we have that input, then we can try to determine, based on the criteria that a traveler, added to this form, how many properties actually match that criteria. And then what do we do with the rest of them don't necessarily match 100%. So that's how the whole format of the tenant leads, the match and unmatch, was born. And that's one of the sections, right? The other section that you have is your booking request. And as a landlord myself, when I get a booking request, it's a gold mine as well, because that means a traveler also went to your property and executed an action of your property. Like they looked at it and they said, oh my gosh, this is the one that I really want to actually inquire to. So they clicked on that button, they filled out that form, and that form is delivered only to you. So it's evolved over time. We've had so many variations of this page. Just trying to understand what makes the most sense. And where we are today, you have at the very top your booking request, which means landlord, the traveler actually found your property on the map, click on it and inquire directly to you. And then you have your housing requests, whether it's matched or unmatched, they both have incredible value. One is this specific traveler fits exactly what I'm offering. Let's go ahead and connect with this traveler as soon as possible, just so that we can start working together. And unmatched, I think, also serves as a really good source of input for what might be lacking at your property or future even investment opportunities. I've seen a lot of our landlords grow with Furnished Finder by maximizing the data that is available under tenant leads, right? So you can see, hey, looks like my property, I keep on getting housing requests, but they're all unmatched, and it's because my pricing is off. Well, maybe I want to play with that a little bit. Or I'm seeing a lot of travelers that are trying to bring pets, and I'm not pet friendly. Maybe this is something I want to consider. Or on the other side, hey, I'm seeing a lot of requests for different type of property type that I may not have. This seems like a good opportunity. I might want to just invest in that type of property in the future. Yeah, so it's a gold mine, and it's a really fun place to actually, if you're a data nerd, just go through it and read it and actually start analyzing what is being delivered, and it could give you really good input.
I love what you're saying there, because I think with midterms, like Furnish Finder has evolved so much. Midterm rentals have evolved so much. You have to also evolve as a landlord, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
like you said, maybe that means that you don't accept pets, but all of a sudden everybody is traveling with a golden doodle. It might be time to consider being pet friendly. Or you add some amenities that are valuable. It's not always as simple as this property isn't a good midterm rental or this property is a good midterm rental. It's like, how do you really tune the dial to get it there? Because there's so many different dials that you can tune in. It for me, I like think about it like, when you're boarding a plane and you look into the cockpit and there's like 1,000 dials, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that looks so overwhelming. But that to me is also how many things you can adjust with your midterm rental. It's not as straightforward as like short terms, where it's like you want to have the flashiest, nicest house on the beach to get the top performing place. And it's not like long terms either. Like there's so many things that you can adjust and tweak. And we give you those signals if you're listening.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The last midterm rental that I personally rented was in a very obscure location, and it was not, it was not going to be intuitive, that that's going to be a midterm rental that it's going to perform. Hey, this place is booked 100% of the time, because it is very centrally located to, for example, it's very close to the domain, but it's very close to where offices are. In my specific case, it was very close to where our office is, and like here in Austin. And I just wanted to be super close, and I also needed a place that was going to be pet friendly. And this place just checked all the boxes. So yeah, it's, you don't know what's going to work, but there are a lot of things that you can test with for sure.
And let's talk about kind of your last tip that you've seen so effective over the years, which is responsiveness matters. I think this is like something we hone in on all of the time. But I know recently as a landlord, I've gotten more phone calls and texts from potential tenants than like in the years past. Like by far, that has exploded for me as a landlord. So I would love for you to just talk to our landlords about why being responsive matters and what all that means.
Yeah, so I mean, responsiveness, it matters, and we're going to keep on talking about this moving forward as well. Things move really, really fast, right? When it comes to, just as an example, when it comes to the medical professional, think of the travel nurse. In a lot of cases, and we've learned from our travelers themselves, by they share whenever we see them in conferences and whenever we do conversations like this. Sometimes they find out that they have a contract and they sign the contract and they're ready to actually you know, get on the plane and actually get to that specific location within a week. You know, as a tenant, I just need to get this done fast, right? There's a lot of uncertainty, there are a lot of moving pieces. And what I need is a landlord that is actually going to respond quick so I can secure my housing as soon as possible and get to my assignment. This happens with a lot of people. Think of insurance. Think of a family whose house flooded, right? This is not something where you can just sit and wait until you find the right match. No, you actually have to move fast because there's urgency in this specific move that you're making. So as a landlord, all we ask our landlords is just be responsive, be quick, because travelers are on the other end waiting for that response, right? And there's a very, very quick turnaround and actually needing housing for a lot of the professionals that we help. So it's going to make the difference for you as a landlord because it's going to help you secure your future tenant faster, more efficiently. But it's also going to change and impact the tenant experience as well because they're going to hear from you, and that's the biggest piece of feedback that we hear from travelers is, hey, sometimes I'm desperate for housing and I don't hear back from so many landlords. At the end of the day, this is a traveler that is needing support finding a home, right? And this could be your future tenant. So being responsive is going to be, and it's going to continue to be, one of the most important pieces of how you can impact, your performance and how you can just continue to deliver, to our travelers as well, the type of experience that they need.
Well, I think this has been a fantastic episode for landlords to really look ahead for the future and how their business can continue to grow with Furnished Finder. So I just want to wrap up with one big picture question for this episode, and that is, as Chief Operating Officer, how is our internal team primed for our current demand growth and will help our landlords stay ahead of the curve and our traveler demand as well?
So our team, I mean, we've done a lot of things across, how our org and how our company is growing. As you guys have probably heard, we're bringing a lot of very talented industry professionals to join Furnish Finder. People that have years of incredible expertise in the rental business, so that they can help us also shape the future of our organization. When it comes to operations as well, we've invested a lot of time and investing a lot into resources, training, additional technology and tooling so that we can make our agents even more efficient so they can support you better, right? As all of these things are changing, not only the industry but our platform as well. We're investing a lot of time into making sure that our agents are fully trained and ready to support you at the right place and the right time, whenever you need them. So that's something that you guys are going to keep on hearing about. We're going to keep on pouring in our people just to make sure that we can continue to serve you as we have over the last 10 years.
Well, Cami, we really appreciate you as our Chief Operating Officer, Katie and I, yourself as Furnished Finder hosts and travelers. And we just want to keep bringing midterm rental success to each one of you. If you have questions, if you have comments, we want to hear from you. So please reach out to our customer service team, reach out through the show note or through the comments on audio or YouTube. We just want to continue to provide the best service possible to each of our landlords and travelers, and look forward to another decade with each one of you growing your business and all the success stories we'll continue to hear. We have over 300,000 listings nationwide, over 200,000 landlords. So come, if you're new to the midterm rental space, jump in. You'll love it. We're here to support you. And stay tuned every week for a new episode of the Landlord Diaries, coming to you for all things midterm rentals. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you.